Ta-da.
So Dr. Kelly Victory returns today. You guys have been asking for it. We're delivering. I know it's very exciting for everyone, including us. After I talk to Kelly, Dr. Jessica Duncan will come in here. We're going to talk a little bit about peptides and as well talking about nutrition in medical education. But Dr. Victory and I have a lot to catch up on. We're going to talk about post-acute care and how that's going to be managed in the future. We're going to talk about the mRNA vaccine, where we were right, maybe where I was wrong, she was wrong. We're going to get a catch up on so many things. Mostly, as the headline reads today, Dr. Victory was correct. Back after this.
Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
For years at Dr. Kelly Victory, you can follow her as such on X, was attacked for all kinds of things, had to defend her license for all kinds of spurious reasons across COVID. We got to Dr. Victory when Susan Pinsky came home one day and said, I heard this woman on the radio, you've got to talk to her, which we did. And we've been going steady ever since. We've got a lot to get into: bird flu fears, blood clots, mRNA. What did I see? I saw something just yesterday where everything was being blamed on COVID. And I thought, okay, why couldn't it also, maybe it was dementia or something, why couldn't it also be the vaccine? Because spike protein is the problem. Please welcome Dr. Kelly Victory. So.
To get the band back together, Drew.
Yeah, exactly. You got the band back together again. So where should we start? There's still. Do you remember this headline I saw? Was it yesterday? I'm gonna be fishing blind here because I can't remember exactly what it was. But let's put it this way: why can't the medical community include in their assessment of the sequelae of COVID the sequelae of the vaccine, given that it all seems to be related to the spike protein?
Absolutely. Well, the cognitive dissonance is real here, Drew. There is a subset of the population, and it's significant, who simply will not acknowledge the vast error of the COVID vaccine project, that experiment. And that's what it was, and it continues to be. These shots did not go, hopefully everybody knows by now, they did not go through the routine, rigorous vetting in years, frankly, generally 6 to 8 years, that a vaccine would need to go through in order to get FDA approval and make it to the market. They were rushed to market. We were sold a bill of goods. And I maintain today, as I sit here before you, as I did from day one, these were not mistakes my government made. These were lies my government told me. They knew at the time they were saying, and we can start talking about all the things they said, but they knew at the time they were saying them that they were lies. They knew at the time, and we have the proof, we have the receipts. We have the emails, we have the studies, we have the documents. I had them. Certainly they had them. And as you know, it's not just Anthony Fauci, although he was the chief perpetrator of the hoax, but all of those people who stood up every day in front of the cameras and, said to you everything from safe and effective to, oh, the shot stays in your arm. Oh, the mRNA gets eliminated within a matter of days. It doesn't go to any other organ systems, and on and on and on. And they knew at the time they were saying it that these were lies.
Which is, again, it's a hard pill to swallow. Did you see Senator Ron Johnson today, or I don't know where this interview, I think it was today or yesterday. He was saying exactly what you're saying, and that his staff is now spending full time unraveling what he called a web of lies, a giant web of lies. Like there was layers and layers and layers to active lying and then defending those lies. What's he going to do with all that,
Well, it's somewhere in the range of 11 million pages of documents that they have to go through. They have hit just the tip of the iceberg. And, so these bombshells come out, they kind of drip out one at a time. One of the most recent ones was they have now uncovered the, incontrovertible truth that they being the CDC, our own government, scientists working under the Biden administration, covered up a clear, what's called safety signal about stroke associated with the Pfizer COVID mRNA boosters. They knew as early as November of 2022. Think about that, coming up on 4 years. November 2022, they knew that there was a safety signal with regard to ischemic strokes that happen because of clotting, lack of blood flow. They suppressed that. They actively changed the wording. The scientists revealing it said that, there's a moderate risk. They changed that to there could be a slight risk. They literally were doing everything they could to make sure that this didn't get out. And if it did get out, it had been whitewashed. So it's not that they didn't have the information. They didn't want you to have the information. We know they did the same thing with the myocarditis risk and on and on. And, this stuff, it is coming out in drips, as I said, but the reality is we have evidence after evidence after evidence, and it's not slight evidence. It's actually, the email chains where they're saying we can't say that. And not only did they not say it, Drew, at the same time, they doubled down on the campaign to push this stuff. Keep promoting it.
Right.
Keep, Anthony Fauci said, once, in public, the problem is the American people aren't scared enough. He knew that they were using fear as a manipulation technique. I mean, it is so awful. I don't know how you really get your arms around it.
It is. And it's, these were all things we were thinking as it was unfolding in real time, right? And yet now it's come into more and more and more focus and more clarity. Mm-hmm. And for me, the mandates were the egregious part of the story, because that's how Aaron Kheriaty ended up in Missouri versus Biden. He raised his hand and said, you don't have a bioethical standing for a mandate here to the University of California, Irvine. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked to see when I brought that up, I got an incredible number of, there was no mandate. And I thought, well, now let's figure this out, because the reality is, in order to go to a university, you were forced to take a vaccine.
Correct.
And that's the very age group which had the highest risk of these adverse events that were quite serious. The thing I've learned, thanks to Sasha Latipova, is because I kept saying, we got to sue these universities. This is ridiculous. Forget the government. Go after these schools that require this. You can't, because they're protected by the PrEP Act.
Right. And so to get back to this issue of people arguing there was no mandate, the reality is we codified this in the Nuremberg Code after the Second World War based on atrocities that occurred there under the name of medicine and science. And specifically, the Nuremberg Code says you may not mandate, coerce, or otherwise, by fear of reprisal, compel someone to participate in a medical experiment. In other words, it doesn't have to be an actual written mandate. In many cases, it was, but it doesn't have to be an actual written mandate. If you say to somebody, you're going to lose your job, or you can't travel, you won't be able to go to school, you'll lose your military pension, and on and on and on. That is fear of reprisal. That is coercion. And that is clearly it was a gross violation of the Nuremberg Code, in addition to medical ethics in general.
I'm hoping that Ron Johnson focuses on that, because it feels like if he uncovers the way the coercion complex, the hoax coercion complex, let's call it, that would be really telling, because the hoaxopathy, the hoax of plenty was one thing, but the coercive mechanism was what really disturbs me to this day. We have a couple of really good calls here. I want to take them. I got time to drop a couple in here. This is Elliot. He's a physician, or I think it's a male, I believe. And he had observed some harms to the mRNA vaccine. So let's get him up here. And
Yep.
Elliot, we appreciate you dropping in. Go ahead, tell us what you found.
So it was a case series of 3 neurological side effects that came in all within 8 weeks of the mandates as they rolled in Florida, where I practice, and the people kind of came to my practice, to precision medicine, functional medical practice, to get at the root cause, because they were medically gaslit by other physicians saying it can't be the vaccine, things of that nature. And these neurological side effects ranged from syncope, which is complete loss of consciousness, and soiled himself. It's actually an individual I knew from years prior. The second one was tinnitus, which can be neurological in origin, not just inner ear. People should know it's neurologically oriented. And the third one was a central nervous system blood clot. I'm trying to say this in layman terms so people understand. And they couldn't drain the fluid, so he would have headaches that got worse and worse every time he would try to do exercise, and it was terrible. Unfortunately, after working with them for weeks, using some of the spike detox protocols that are out, I'm sure you know, they all got better. We don't know what the long-term effects of those are. And in my paper that I wrote, it's in open access, anyone can read it. Just type in adverse or side effects from Pfizer mRNA vaccine with neurological issues, and you'll see it. But a clear, delineated line of who should be getting this and who shouldn't based on risks and benefits. The biggest disappointment to me is I don't think it reached enough people. I wasn't afraid. This is science. This is what we were trained to do, to protect people. So talk about hoax. I mean, the only way they got this to work is because they were able to get it to doctors. And that, I'd love to hear from a legal perspective how the heck they got that to happen. I did not. 80% of my patients did not. But, med students, the kids that look up to me and try to come into our practice here, it's sad, because a lot of them, we don't know what happened. Or going to happen.
Well, I have to, let me interject here that.
Go ahead.
As I say, let me interject here, Dr. Elliott. This is not the first time in history in which physicians were co-opted to perpetrate atrocities on humanity. And I don't just mean what happened during the Third Reich and Second World War. Think about MK Ultra. Think about the Tuskegee experiment. The reality is that this entire COVID debacle could not have occurred were it not for the complicity of our colleagues. If all physicians had stood shoulder to shoulder with me when I was suffering the slings and arrows very early on and spoken the truth, this would not have happened. It was precisely because they got physicians on board and willing to continue this that it was a lot that had happened.
And it's the fact that we discovered during COVID that so many physicians were employees. They were threatened with their jobs. Their bosses said, do it and shut up. And they did. And that was the part that was new information for me and shocking to see them fall in line with that. And then as far as the syncope, that's probably the POTS syndrome that we've been seeing so much of. And that's what I'm blanking on my friend's name. He fell down and hit his head and died. Susan, help me. The comedian.
Heather? Oh.
Anyway.
Bob Saget.
Bob Saget. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And also, do you say the blood clot, was that a transverse sinus thrombosis? Is that what happened?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So guess what? I had that. I had that from the J&J vaccine, and I heard Fauci, and I heard Fauci talk about that on an old tape. There's my raccoon's eye, if you can see the video. I woke up with a unilateral raccoon's eye, which is one of the presenting manifestations of a transverse sinus thrombosis. And I thought, oh shit, here we go. And at the time, only women had it. And I thought, is this going to go to TTP? And I'm like, those things are also associated with midbrain strokes. It's like, well,
I've seen TTP
anyway,
in the practice as well.
Yeah, so here we are. But listen, I really appreciate your effort, your call, your courage, which is something that I didn't expect to be thinking about at this stage of my career. Complimenting my peers for being courageous because they didn't cave to the mob. But here we are. I hope you're continuing to maintain your independence and your ability to speak out.
Yeah, we are. And I grew up watching The Love Line, so you were an inspiration to me back then, and I'm glad we can connect.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Elliot.
You got it. Thank you.
You bet. So isn't that interesting? I mean, and you remember, Kelly, when we were in the dark hours, no way a doctor would have called us to talk to us. In fact,
right.
I remember when Bobby Kennedy, you introduced us to Bobby Kennedy, and he was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking to me. It's so dangerous. It's so courageous to have a conversation with Bobby Kennedy. I was like, why? What's going on here? Yeah. Amazing.
Well, Well, that was probably one. If you didn't understand it before, that by itself, Drew, should have been the red flag to the average physician. Prior to COVID, debate, robust, vigorous, respectful, but robust, vigorous debate was a cornerstone of medicine. It's always been the cornerstone of science. It's how you get to the answers. You sit in a room and you duke it out. You argue it out. For years, I had a plaque on my desk that said, argue with me, because that's how you get to the best conclusions. But all of a sudden, fast forward, COVID hits, and oh no, we can't have any debate. We can't have any discussion. There's one narrative. It's a narrative that is provided to you by your government, the CDC, the FDA, and the public health, quote, experts who are going to tell you, and it's, our way or the highway, and never the twain shall meet. And, thank God for Kaleb on the show, who came up with ways to sort of, allow us to have conversations that wouldn't get immediately taken off of YouTube, and Rumble, because he came up with ways that we could protect ourselves by, disclaimers on the screen. But it was a crazy time. Since when in history have we not been out, crazy?
Yeah, and it's still going on. When Kaleb, speaking of Kaleb, he posted, people reacted much in the way they did in 2020. But Kaleb, do you want to talk about that at all before I go to break?
No, it's like, to this day on YouTube, I'm still hesitant to use the word ivermectin in any descriptions or titles. I still go with the I word. And isn't it hilarious that everyone knows exactly what we're talking about still? Right. Everybody knows what we're talking about. We say the I word, we say the H word. Isn't that ridiculous that we have two licensed physicians on screen who have been doing this for decades, like before I was born, and yet we have to use code words still?
Right. I would tell our guests, back in the early days when I'd be on with Drew, I'd say, it's no problem if you say shit. Just don't say ivermectin.
Exactly.
That's right.
What is that about,
But by the way, we did not understand the pressure, the censorship that the government, with the huge censorship campaign, it was so anathema to our understanding of what our government was.
I knew it was happening.
Correct. I will tell you though, and you may have forgotten that I was the first co-plaintiff. I was the first person President Trump asked to join his class action lawsuit against Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. I joined that, and we are. No, it was, and those cases are now settled. They settled in all of those, and that is, frankly, what is funding the Trump Library. The president got the vast majority of those settlements went to the president, but they were forced to settle with those of us whose lives they destroyed for a period of time by kicking us off social media and, frankly, doing tremendous damage to our reputations in the process.
I remember Alex Berenson was in that whole mess too. All right, we're going to keep this conversation going. Let me quickly look at the Rumble rants and the restream, see what you guys are talking about. Here we go. Here's a physician online from Facebook saying, listen to this. This is, I wish he'd call in. There's a number 8333-DRW. 1 million people died, yes. Testimonials which use extensively mean little, but for the record, I and my family had the original vaccine. This was available, booster, blah, blah, no problems. Your embarrassment, blah, blah, blah. How can you be so wrong and uninformed about vaccine science? So is his point, here's
because his family didn't get sick.
No. Here's my point. A 19 to 24-year-old male has a zero risk from Omicron. Essentially zero,
Right.
a healthy 1940. Would Alpha and Delta meant something different? Possibly. Alpha and Delta was a nasty version of the illness. And if that kid wanted to take a vaccine, okay. But by the time we really got to the mandates to go to school, we're talking about Omicron. So zero risk of the Omicron, non-zero risk from the vaccine. Pretty easy decision there. The kid could take it if he wanted to, but he shouldn't be forced to take something that had risk associated with it and limited or no benefit. Makes no sense. That's my bottom line.
Correct. The entire rationale, and if you go back to the case in 1905, which people will cite saying that the government can, in fact, mandate you to take a vaccine. That was a case based on the smallpox vaccine and an individual who didn't want to take it and was fined $5 for not doing so. The basis in the Supreme Court of that case was because the polio vaccine was and is known to prevent transmission of polio to others. Transmission, meaning you are obligated to take this to not pass on your polio to the guy sitting next to you. The COVID vaccines were never tested. They were never even tested to see if they stop transmission. And lo and behold, they don't. And even, this is not my opinion, the vaccine manufacturers acknowledge that the shots don't stop transmission. So if they don't stop you from transmitting to others, Drew, that's the only basis to have a mandate. You can't force me to not get sick. If I want to get sick, if I want to risk COVID, if I want to risk whatever disease, that's my God-given right. I have a right to do that. Okay. And you can't force people in the same way we don't force them, to go to a gym. We don't force them to not eat fast food. We can't force them to, not have multiple sexual partners. People have a right to make decisions about how risky they want to be with their health. So the concept of the mandate was flawed from day one.
Take a little break. We'll be right back with more Kelly Victory after this. I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know how metal can rust? Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, so we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Censored, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products. And I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd. What's going on with your retirement savings? This should concern all of us. Inflation is not some abstract notion. It quietly erodes purchasing power over time.
Central banks have been buying more gold for the last 4 years than they have in the history. And there's a reason for that. We have a love affair with the dollar and with paper currencies. And most people are just in paper. We're attached. And you know how relationships are. What do you say to a patient when they're locked in a relationship with someone who's obviously doesn't have their best interests at heart, but they stay with it?
Denial. And that's why we suggest Augusta Precious Metals. Their entire approach is very different. There's no pressure. They just give you education and information. Augusta explains how gold or silver IRAs work and how physical metals could fit into your retirement account without tax consequences. And they've operated for over a decade with thousands of clients. They put together a free guide that walks you through everything. It's available now at drdrew.com/gold. You'll get the same educational materials that Augusta gave to Susan and myself. So if inflation worries you, Augusta is a great place to start. Go to drdrew.com/gold. That is drdrew.com/GOLD, or just text the word Drew to the number 35052. That's 35052 to get that free guide now.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Where's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
Dr. Kelly Victory is with us. You can follow her on X, Dr. Kelly Victory, Kelly. Oh, Kelly, it's, to see people sort of misrepresenting our position and sort of continuing to be sort of emotionally sort of, mobilized. It's the cognitive dissonance, I guess, again,
right?
Where you're not allowed to have nuanced opinions. You're not allowed to have different opinions. It's the weirdest thing to me.
Well, it is. And I think people misunderstand what certainly my stance is. I believe in personal medical freedom. Autonomy is one of the 4 pillars of medical ethics. And it is based on the idea that you have a right to choose what you do with your own body. So if somebody wants to get these shots, by all means, have at it. I don't care if you get 8 or 10 or 12. I just want to have my choice. And part of this is based on the fact that fundamentally, you and I were lied to during medical school. What we were taught about vaccines simply isn't the case. I, for one, was taught, and I'm sure you were as well, for example, that it was the polio vaccine that is responsible for having ended the scourge of polio in this country. That simply isn't the case. You need to look, if you look at the timeline of polio cases, they had clearly dropped to very, very low, and severe illness from polio had almost bottomed out to 0 prior to the vaccine ever being launched. This is similar with measles. The trajectory, the timelines don't match up with what we were taught. Now, because of the blanket liability immunity that is enjoyed by the vaccine manufacturers ever since 1986, we have burgeoned the vaccine load from the 6 to 8 that I got when I was growing up, that you got when you were growing up, from birth to age 18, to where we are now at 85 shots between birth and age 18. And I'm here to tell you, as a physician, the human immune system was never intended to be flogged like that over and over and over again with an immune challenge, which is what a vaccine is. It simply causes, it is wreaking havoc with our God-given immune systems. So rather than thinking you are just one vaccine away from good health, if we could just come up with one more vaccine, it'll all be good. That simply isn't the case. And we should be far more, circumspect about the way we approach vaccinology. Which ones do we really need? And which ones can we say, you know what, average healthy people will do just fine? As a point of reference, I have never in my life received a flu vaccine, ever. And here I am because I am healthy, I am well, I am fit. And do I want to get influenza? I've had it twice in my life that I know of, where I felt pretty darn lousy for 5 or 6 days. And I got through it. And frankly, without suffering the risks that are carried with a vaccine after vaccine after vaccine after vaccine, and what it does to your immune system.
And to be fair, I'm on a different side of that equation, although I've become much more circumspect than I used to be. I used to say that there weren't enough vaccines available for my family. I needed more. And I take that back. I take it back mostly because we really don't know the cumulative effects of all these things. Now, I've had shingles and flu and pneumonia vaccines and hepatitis B vaccine, but why does a hepatitis B vaccine need to be given to a 1-day-old? That to me is insane. And so some of these things are, these are debatable points. And I think you would agree, your main thing is you want the info to be able to give an informed consent to a patient and give that patient the freedom to make a good decision.
Exactly. And you as a physician can't give that information to a patient if the government and the vaccine manufacturers aren't giving it to us. So, and clearly we are exposing that is exactly what is happening, that you can't give informed consent to your patients if it's being withheld from you. So again, and look, Bobby Kennedy and the guys on ACIP, the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, when they pared down, which they just did some weeks ago, pared down the childhood vaccine schedule from the 85 shots that have been on it to 11 shots that are, I think it's a total of for 11 illnesses. So they got rid of 55 total shots to be more in line with westernized countries, including Denmark, which was their model. They didn't take these off the market. They didn't say you can't get them. They didn't say that insurance shouldn't pay for them. They simply said they shouldn't be on the CDC childhood vaccine list, which is what most states use to base their mandatory vaccines for children to go to school. So all we're saying is not that, nobody can get them. If you want your kid vaccinated out the yin yang, have at it. But that it should be an informed decision and be in the hands of parents and their clinician. And I would, I tell people, you be very careful who you choose as a pediatrician, because the pediatricians, as we have just learning more and more, are really in the tank with big pharma.
Carl, you're on with this on the air. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, right on, Drew and Kelly. Good to talk to you guys. Yeah, no, this whole thing with the vaccine, it was the amount of pressure was unbelievable. I had worked for a city, and I almost lost my job. It got to the point where they allowed us to do some testing, but they said, "Hey, we're gonna end up starting to fire people," and then they told people, "Hey, you guys wear a mask if you don't have it," so they could kind of single people out. And it just felt wrong from the beginning with, like, when you looked at doctors that were trying to come up with things and you left the entire medical establishment from doing what they normally do as doctors on, like, hey, this is how we treated somebody and these are the things we did. They didn't want to hear anything from, like, any success stories or anything other than the vax. Then when they wanted to give us the vax,
no, it was weird. It was much like that. Carl, is much like that guy that just attacked us from Facebook. He's like, "You're an embarrassment." Physicians don't talk to each other that way. We would go, "I disagree I use most disagreement with you. I have a severe problem with what you're saying. Here's my argument, and let's mix it up," as opposed to these insults, which are bizarre.
No, and this is basically, go back, history repeats itself. When Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote The Scarlet Letter, it was about shunning people for behavior that is out of the norm, that they don't agree with. So whether you're forced to wear a gold star or a scarlet letter, or in Carl's case, a mask, because, oh my God, you actually employed your God-given right to make your own personal medical decision. It is a way of marking you as you are unclean. You are not one of us. You are a dissenter. It's absolutely wrong. And you're right, Drew. Physicians, debate me if you want. Tell me what study it is that you've read that leads you to believe that I am not right. Tell me how I've misinterpreted the data, but don't tell me I'm an embarrassment. I mean, that's meaningless. The epithets, it's meaningless.
And
Well, thanks for the call, my friend.
Consent. Okay, but how can you get informed consent when they gave you the vax, and then on the sheet that you would look at the side effects, it's completely empty.
Right.
So you don't even know. It's like if you go to a regular doctor and you're getting some other medicine, you could go like, hey, this might affect me in some way. You had no way to actually consent to that because you had no clue of what the risks were. The whole thing was just crazy, but thanks you guys, and thanks for standing up for all of us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate the support. It's wild. It's a pretty wild time. Let's get Janice up here. She's been waiting quite a while, I think. Janice, you had a story for us too.
Yeah. I knew, like, almost from the beginning of it, that there was a problem with even COVID, because I knew I have a little bit of medical training, and so I knew that illness should not be mucosal and direct contact. Both, only could be both.
Right.
It was engineered that way.
Right.
And then when people, when masks, and I'm going, masks don't stop viruses. I know this.
Right.
Right.
No, there were. You're right, Janice. There were many, many signs, and the masking issue was one of them. We've known, and I've said many times, the reason I was saying what I was saying starting in January of 2020 isn't because I was a really good guesser. It's because we've known this stuff from the beginning. And the masking, Janice, you're right. We've known for decades that masks do virtually nothing to stop the spread of a respiratory virus. They just don't. We know that lockdowns always cause far more damage than good. There is no concept of quarantining healthy people. You quarantine sick people, not healthy people, and on and on and on. So there was breach after breach after breach of common sense constructs in medicine, in healthcare, in public health that were absolutely, these went out the window, and these were all red flags that, whoa, I smell a rat.
Well, how about the Bill of Rights being thrown out the window, which is still what bothers me. There's still a wrinkle. There's still a wrinkle in the public health domain where they have way too much authority, and that's got to be somehow curtailed. Mm-hmm. It's not helpful, and it is reprehensible in a country like this.
Exactly. And I don't, we have not gotten back to baseline. We've gotten, it's been dialed back a bit, certainly with Elon Musk taking over Twitter and with President Trump ascending to the presidency again. We've had some loosening of it, but we are only, it is one thin line away from happening again. And don't think if there was a change in the administration that people like you and certainly me would not be in the crosshairs again for them. Because if nothing else, they learned how to weaponize things like the medical boards. They weaponized the entire system. They weaponized, they really used the cudgel of censorship to keep people in line and say, you will not speak of this. We won't allow it. We will silence you. It's not a lot different than what happened during the Cultural Revolution in China, where they literally executed physicians. Here, they're just silencing you another way.
Let's talk for a couple of minutes about some other things. We've got lots of calls. I hope I'll get you guys hang in there. The cancer study that you and I were part of, that Harvey Reisch did a wonderful job really polishing. And by the way, I was extremely skeptical that study would show anything. I read it carefully. It's a decent study, and it had a real positive, it had a signal. There was a signal. It needs more study. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. So to be clear, this was a purely observational study and has lots of limitations as a result of the nature of the way it was done. What we did is we looked at nearly 200 patients. So it was 197 of them with many, many different brands of cancer, and looked at how taking the combination of ivermectin and mebendazole, what impact that had, if any, on their cancer. And lo and behold, what we found really was quite compelling. 84% of people had a positive, excuse me. Bad time for a sneeze. 84% had a positive outcome, in meaning that 48% had either no evidence of cancer at all at the end or significant remission of their cancer. Another 36% had no progression of their disease, and only 15% total of these people had progression of their cancer. Now, again, lots of limitations in a study like this. Some people are also getting radiation. Some people may or may not have been doing chemotherapy. We have all of that data. So there were a mixture of things. But the fact that 84% of the people taking ivermectin and mebendazole had a positive outcome, at a minimum, Drew, should motivate further study, should motivate big dollars to be spent on a large, in randomized control trial to investigate this, because there's no question, we've known for decades, ivermectin in particular has very, very powerful anti-cancer properties, 12 different mechanisms by which it interrupts cancer growth and progression. It is an incredibly safe drug, great safety profile, relatively inexpensive, and in comparison to chemotherapy, wildly inexpensive. And most importantly, it actually supports your immune system rather than destroying it, which is what typical chemotherapy, traditional chemotherapy may kill cancer cells, but it also kills a heck of a lot of good stuff in the process.
What we call cytotoxic chemotherapy.
Yes.
Gosh, what was the other thing I wanted to? Is it not the case that Johns Hopkins had a patent on, I think it was on bendazole for cancer?
On bendazole, correct. Decades ago, by the way. And it's been well documented in the veterinary community that ivermectin is used. 12 years ago, I had a Labrador retriever who got breast cancer, and the drug they put her on was ivermectin. The veterinarians have used it for, it's got profound anti-cancer properties. The problem is nobody's going to get wealthy on it. And this is it. Look, I'm not telling anybody whether or not they, in their individual case, should or shouldn't try traditional cytotoxic chemotherapy. That's an individual choice and one that a lot of thought goes into. But I can tell you that there's a reason, it's a racket. Oncologists and the system in general does not want you to know about other safe, well-tolerated medications like ivermectin, mebendazole, vitamin D, and things that have a profound anti-cancer effects. And I think, again, when it comes to informed consent, doctors are supposed to be giving patients all of the options, not just a singular one, particularly in the case of chemotherapy, where I believe that there's a significant conflict of interest because chemotherapy is the only class of drugs in the United States where the doctor is allowed to make a cut, and they make a significant cut. Oncologists purchase chemotherapy drugs from the pharmaceutical company and they resell them to the patient. The last study I read said that the average oncologist in the United States makes 55% of their income is based on chemotherapy drugs that they sell. Now, I have a problem with that. I'm not saying that, oncologists are prescribing things they don't believe in, but that shouldn't be the case that their incomes are based that heavily on promoting a particular class of drugs. And I think it does play into the reason why there isn't more focus on these other very, very safe alternatives.
I'm just reading a quick review. The buy and bill model is under scrutiny right now because of conflicts of interest concerns.
Yeah.
And then one more thing, Kelly, before I let you go, I guess Bobby Kennedy's going to have a podcast. You're going to be on it?
I don't, I like Bobby Kennedy very, very much. I've known him for a long time. He's certainly, I think, doing ultimately good work at HHS. I think his hands are tied on a lot of issues, unfortunately. He has not asked me to be a guest on it yet. I certainly hope that he does. We would have a great conversation.
There we go. Okay, good. I'm going to push that if I can find a way to throw you through the door there. Kelly, where do you want people to go to find you? What are you up to these days?
Well, my only social media footprint is on Twitter, on X at Dr. Kelly Victory, and I'm on there quite a bit. And then I'm very, very active at the Wellness Company, as you know, spending more and more time with them.
Tell them about Wellness Care. So we didn't talk about that. Jeez, tell them about that.
No, we didn't. So like you, I'm on the chief medical board, but I also am now the chief medical officer of a whole new branch at the Wellness Company called Wellness Care. What we are doing is providing a Medicare-covered service that very, very few Americans know about or take advantage of, which is that for anyone who's on Medicare, they have the right to have chronic care management. What that means is for the millions and millions of people who have one or more chronic conditions, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, asthma, diabetes, obesity, arthritis, any of these conditions, the problem for so many of these people is there's a huge gap between, seeing their doctor every 6 months, and they need support in that intervening 6 months. And we are there to provide that. So you get a dedicated care provider, somebody who you can talk with on a weekly basis or more if you want, somebody who can help you review your medications, understand what issues you're having, provide that coaching, provide support, answer questions, and be a conduit to your primary care doctor. We aren't replacing their primary care. What we are doing is being that coach, that sort of support system between office visits with their primary care doctor. I think it's going to provide a way better experience for people. And I expect, and we will, well, you know me, Drew, I'm out to document it. I expect that we will develop better patient outcomes, better blood pressure control, better blood sugar control, better pain control, and those sorts of things.
And are you doing post-acute care also? I mean, that's where I feel like primary care has just vanished, and that's so
we
important
are also
now.
Yes, doing with transitional care when people come out of the hospital, those first, as you know, those first days and, a couple of weeks after they get out of the hospital, it's a very, very tenuous time. And it's we have a horrible track record in healthcare in the United States for people falling through the cracks, ending up back in the hospital or with complications. And we are there to bridge that as well. These are, again, services that are provided, benefits that are provided as part of Medicare. And unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans don't know about it or take advantage of it. And that's what we are there. We're filling that gap.
How do people sign up for that if they want it?
You can just go directly to our website, to dwc.health, and look at and go to wellness care. And people are self-referring. Ultimately, our goal is to go to doctors and say, look, you should be providing this for your patient. We know you're too busy to do it. It doesn't cost you a dime. Let us tap into your patient roster and we will take over that part and we will work seamlessly. We were not trying to steal your patients. We don't want your patients. Yeah. What we want to do is support them during the times that you can't.
Kelly, thank you so much for being here and thank you for that work with TWC, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me. Always great. Talk soon.
Of course. You got it. Absolutely. All right, Dr. Kelly.
That was good.
Yeah, of course. We are going to switch gears and talk to another physician. We're going to talk about things like, again, we're going near things like post-vaccine problems, but I want to talk about peptides, and I want to talk about nutrition training in medical school with Dr. Jessica Duncan right after this. More of our audience is taking health and wellness into their own hands, and they're doing it with the Wellness Company. For a discount on the best-selling products and everything on their website, for that matter, go to drdrew.com/TWC. The medical emergency kits are among the most popular items. There are 8 different kits, each depending on your individual needs. Inside, you'll find antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitics, first aid, anti-nauseal, skin treatments, and a kids kit with EpiPen and one for travel. The advantage to having an emergency kit in the house is immediacy. You don't have to run to the urgent care and spend a ton of money for all that infrastructure or wait for the pharmacy to open or try to find a doctor. And then there's Ultimate Spike Detox Supplement with nattokinase, turmeric, and bromelain. It has helped the vaccine injured. And anyone who is concerned about cardiovascular issues caused by lingering spike from the virus or the shots, the Ultimate Spike Detox is for you. One of TWC's top sellers is a topical ivermectin cream. It treats inflammation of the skin, issues like rosacea. The Wellness Company is always innovating. So go to drdrew.com/TWC to see what they have to offer and get a 10% discount there. Something our audience knows well is that what's good for our health can also be good for the environment. Paleo Valley makes snacks, drinks, oils, and more that are nutrient-dense, delicious, and impeccably sourced. Co-founder Autumn Smith champions regenerative farming. It's a level beyond organic.
When you go to the grocery store, 90% of the animal products you're going to buy are from factory farms. And we obviously know factory farms work against nature. They work against animal health and in many ways against human health. Regenerative farms work on taking the landscape or the ecosystem from a degraded state, which the environment right now needs needs a lot of rehabilitation, and we have lower nutrient levels in our soil than ever before. We found that animal products from regenerative systems have nutritional benefits above and beyond other types of animal products.
Paleo Valley's beef sticks and bone broth protein powder are my favorites, and they come from regenerative farms. And the sticks also come in pasture-raised chicken as well.
We actually just went and visited one of our chicken farmers, and we work with a lot of co-ops and people all over the country.
We are such fans of Autumn, her work, and her extraordinary small business. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for a 15% discount on your first order, or get 20% off when you subscribe.
Hey, Dr. Drew here, and we are interested in health and longevity, and the longevity nutrient is Fatty 15, discovered amazingly by a veterinarian who was responsible for the Navy's fleet of dolphins. Turns out dolphins are healthier when they have adequate amounts of pentadecanoic acid, which is C15. It also, for us, it helps humans as well, reduces the oxidative stress on our cell membranes, which is part of the aging process called ferroptosis. So, she takes it, I take it, whole family takes it. And if you'd like some, go to drdrew.com/Fatty15 for yours. There are discounts there.
Oh my God, look, Drew, it's a dolphin. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Dr. Drew here, and even when we travel, we bring the new convenient fatty gummies. They're delicious, and they are portable, and they're great. And remember, this is a longevity ingredient. It fights against the oxidative stress on our cell membranes. We call that process ferroptosis, discovered in dolphin research by Dr. Van Watson. And I'm taking this every day, even when I travel. It's Fatty 15. Dr. Jessica Duncan is a physician, a board-certified obesity medicine physician as well, chief medical officer at Ivim Health. She has a medical degree from Rutgers, and she went to Weill Cornell for residency and board certification, as I said, also anesthesiology. And I think she went to Georgetown, if I remember right. Dr. Duncan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Am I getting that right in your undergraduate education? Was it Georgetown?
That's right, yes.
Got it. So, let's talk. I can't help but scratch on the obesity topic through the lens of GLP-1s. I worry about overprescribing of any medication. I wonder where you come in on this.
Yeah, absolutely. GLP-1s have kind of taken the obesity medicine world by storm. So I always say you have to think about the long-term game plan before you start someone on these medications. So you really need to be thinking about, first of all, whether they should be on the medication. Second of all, whether they need to be on the medication for life. And if you are going to prescribe a GLP-1, you need to think of it as just one tool in the toolkit. Medication can never be prescribed alone. It's not a set it and forget it. You send somebody out the door with a prescription. You need to be thinking about a comprehensive care plan. So that's always how you have to think about the GLP-1s in the setting of obesity care.
And I've seen some horrific side effects. I mean, really, really not good. And that, again, that doesn't mean the medicine shouldn't be prescribed. It just shouldn't be prescribed indiscriminately the way it seems to be. People are just using it for non-medical purposes even, which I find really problematic. But the other issue is in terms of the overall planning, some sort of nutritional plan. And I'd be hard-pressed to find any of my peers that really do that.
Right. And nutrition is key. So first of all, you have to talk to somebody about their long-term nutrition plan, whether they stay on these medications for life or if they don't. But you also have to help them figure out the way to eat while they're on a GLP-1 medication. That's pretty nuanced, especially like you mentioned with side effects. So you have to start planning for side effects and teaching patients how to manage them before the side effects even arrive. So this is why, physician-led care, this is so important. You need to partner with your physician. You have to feel trust in the physician to guide you through that process for sure.
I personally had an experience that I want you to comment on, maybe analyze, which is, really good nutritional care has to be not just nuanced to the social, personal, and, cultural context for that individual, but also at different ages, it's a different thing. So I'm 67 years old. Last summer, a couple of year and a half ago, I lost a bunch of weight. I thought I'm going to lose some weight. I lost a bunch of weight. And I effectively did it. I did it properly. And I really felt good about it. But I felt feeble. after I did it. And I thought, wait a minute. Not only should someone my age maybe not weigh this little, maybe I really ought to be focusing more on a more moderate weight with really pushing on maintaining muscle mass. And maybe my body type is a little different in terms of how I maintain muscle. And so all these things I'm going through my head going, my God, we just never really get into those. I suspect you do, but the average physician doesn't really get into these very, very specific things.
Sure. And truly, it's not their fault. The model isn't really set up for them to get into those sort of things in one small 15 or 30-minute visit. So absolutely, I dive in. I think your nutritional needs change as you age, of course, and especially with weight loss, the body goes through so many changes. So like you mentioned, maintaining lean muscle mass becomes key, but even including healthy fats in the diet to make sure that you're producing enough hormones as you age and as you lose weight is going to be key as well. I mean, you really have, it's like you said, it's very nuanced. It's really something that you need somebody to weigh in on with you, which is why I feel so passionate about educating physicians on how to talk about nutrition to their patients. Because frankly, if you don't have that knowledge, you're not armed with the ability to develop a comprehensive plan for your patients.
Yeah, for me, I need a lot more protein. I need to be able to lift heavier weights than I was. And I have to not look at the scale. I really do.
Right.
That the scale is it's not the thing at certain ages. It's that
number, it sometimes lies to you.
Well, sarcopenia is such a problem. And everyone has to have a strategy. That should be part of routine healthcare. Like, how are we going to maintain your muscle mass into your 80s?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like those discussions need to start when you're in your 50s, right? So that by the time you hit 60 and sarcopenia becomes a real risk, it's something that we're talking about. And sarcopenia puts you at risk for so many things later in life, falls, there's balance challenges. So really, it's something that we need to start talking about earlier on and paying really close attention to as someone gets over the age of 60. And so when I talk to my patients who are trying to lose weight, I really like to talk about optimal weight. What's the optimal weight for them? And sometimes that's frankly, not based on BMI. We all know BMI is an imperfect measure. So finding that optimal weight for patients and really kind of helping them to find where that fits, and it might not be the exact number on the scale that they're looking for, is really important.
And I'm a statin fan, but I'm increasingly concerned about statin science in the sense that, so much of the data and so much of the cardiological enthusiasm is single endpoint, cardiac event. And sometimes they throw in cerebrovascular also. But all-cause mortality is not even on the platform. And I know that goes up when you go below a certain level. Not only that, I'm starting to worry that they're getting so enthusiastic about these LDLs below 50 that we're going to start seeing people that can't produce hormones. I mean, that's the backbone of their hormone metabolism too. What are your thoughts?
Right, absolutely. I mean, I kind of just mentioned even with weight loss and hormone shifts, you really need to be focused on a full picture. I mean, you cannot, and overdoing it. Too much of a good thing is sometimes too much. It goes for just about any medication that we're talking about. And really, we do this in practice, weighing individual risks, right? So even taking a guideline and applying it to an individual patient is going to be important. For something like a statin, for something like a GLP-1, of course, you need to look at that individual patient and what their risks are and what matters most.
So I had very, very good biochemical training as an undergraduate, and my medical school biochemistry was deficient, I would say. That's a kind way of describing it. It was just very rote pathways, nothing. But I knew how actual biochemical sciences were done. And it makes me wonder if we're going to be able to effectively treat nutritional sciences. I know there's a new push to do so in medical schools. Do you have faith that we'll get that done?
I have faith that we'll get it done, but it's going to take some time. First of all, even when we receive nutritional education in medical school, like I know for me, I actually got nutrition education, but there was so much of a focus on vitamin and mineral deficiencies that I think we really even need to rethink the education, the curriculum that we bring into nutrition. Yep. So really more of kind of focus on food as medicine, preventative use of foods is really going to be key. I know that vitamin and mineral deficiencies are important, but learning about things that I'll never see in clinical practice, we really have to shift our mindset around not only do we provide the education, but it needs to be the right education for physicians in training.
And I think to do that, they really have to get deep into the actual biochemical processes. What is the evidence, and then what's the underlying mechanism? And I'm laughing because the vitamin deficiencies and nutrition is literally the technologies of the early 20th century. Those are the nutritional triumphs of the 1915, and we're still teaching that as though it's a relevant. It's not even relevant. It's like, why don't we talk about how to use a sword or something? It's really wild. So yeah, it's kind of something. And then teach me, well, not teach me. I want somebody to teach me because I find the landscape confusing. But what do we need to do with peptides? I don't know what to do with that. Somebody recently convinced me to start taking, was it BPC 157? Is that what they call it? And which I'm doing. And I'm, I have all kinds of supplements I take and things, but that was a new one for me. And because last time I tried it, I got diarrhea. This time I did not. And I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a benefit. I don't know. But I don't understand the peptide landscape. I don't understand it, and I don't know where to go to get good data.
Yeah, this is really tricky. So, they've kind of reemerged both, in social media and otherwise as a new hot topic. I think we were starting to utilize peptide therapy for patients who had a specific wellness goal a couple of years back. Then there was a shift in the regulatory landscape with the FDA. So now they're kind of coming back into the conversation since Secretary Kennedy announced the potential move of about 14 peptides over from the Category 2 list to the Category 1 list. So now really everyone that I talk to is looking for more education on peptides, and they don't know where to find it. So a lot of people are going to social media. A lot of people are going to other sources to learn more about peptides like BPC. I say find physicians like me who are comfortable talking about peptides, who are putting education out there on social media and otherwise. Find people like us who can really surmise the literature that does exist, even though it's limited, and really boil that down into how that matters for an individual patient. But really, when I think about peptides, I think about approaching a wellness goal rather than a treatment of a disease process.
And is there a reason we're not getting good research on peptides? Or it would seem to me like people would be running to do that research.
Right. Well, because a significant number of peptides are moved over to the Category 2 list, manufacturers, compounding pharmacies, and other manufacturers can't even produce them, and we can't prescribe them. So it would be illegal for me to prescribe certain peptides that are on that list right now. So, obviously human data is essential, but we can't even produce case reports or small studies because we can't even prescribe them right now. So we're very limited.
I'm going to it's your Instagram, right? That's where you want people to go?
Yes.
If you're giving me education, I need the education. It's just drjessica.md. I'm going to find it right now. There's dr.
No, it's doctor, the full word, drjessica.md.
Oh, that's why. Okay, got it. Okay, see, it's a good thing that we spelled that out. CTOR. Sorry to take time doing this, but I think it's important.
It's okay. Get me now.
It's a dot. Yeah, for sure. And Kaleb, you wanted to ask something about the experience. I'm still not finding it. Well, there you are. That Jillian Michaels got in a debate with let's see, they were body positivity for people. And they got into a debate over language, which I find always, I don't know. Well, I'll see what you think about it.
Yeah,
I don't know bias what you're going to say.
I don't know
Kaleb,
if you saw the video. I know Drew saw it, and I watched almost the whole, it was like almost an hour and a half long. There's this viral video that has Jillian Michaels versus body positivity activists. And in the video, the activists were very offended the moment that she used the word obese or obesity at all. And they actually insisted or demanded that she call them fat, which back in my day, that was like a swear word. Like when I was growing up, if you were not allowed to use that word, you couldn't refer to someone that way. Right. You would have to say obese was the kinder word. Oh, that person is obese. You wouldn't say it to their face, but you would never use the word fat. But all of the activists were like just incensed and out of their minds because she started by using that word. So do you know what changed culturally since I was born in 1988? And is it smart for people to actually drop the clinical term obese and start saying fat instead?
So coming from my perspective, I did not see the video. I should watch it. I know that it's out there. I just have not had a minute to watch it. But coming from my perspective as an obesity medicine physician, something I preach, Dr. Drew, you're going to see it on my Instagram. I preach it from the rooftops. Obesity is a chronic disease and it's defined as such. So I think by not calling obesity and treating it as a chronic disease, we're actually taking something away from the patients that need doctors like me and the therapies that we provide and the treatment options that we provide to treat it as a chronic disease. And that can be very stigmatizing. Patients with obesity have struggled for years to get the care that they deserve. So, I advocate for treating it as a disease, just like high blood pressure, just like asthma. So I feel like when we take that term away or try to shift that term, we might be unnecessarily kind of bringing back some of the biases that we tried so hard to get rid of. So I have to say I'm with you on this, Kaleb.
Yeah, you know what? It reminds me of what we did with addiction, right? You're not allowed to call somebody a drug addict. You have to have a person with a substance use disorder and all this stuff. And my patients call themselves junkies. And they laugh about it and they like the term and they use it all the time. And the outside world has decided they need to protect them from the terminology, which is absurd. And to try to silence physician language is just, again, this is anathema. It's disgusting. It's not helping the patients. It's doing everything but helping the patients. Let's call hypertension something else. What is it? Stigmatizing having an illness. And by the way, I'm equally as sort of, I feel about addiction the way you feel of obesity. It's a thing people get. It's a condition. No big deal. I have no valence emotionally attached to it any more than, like you said, hypertension. It's just one of the things that I treat, and people suffer because of it, and I want to help you. That's it, period. Done.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to stop people up from coming in to see me or thinking they're not worthy of care or it's not a disease that should be treated for their entire lives. I'm, very adamant about that.
So have I missed anything? Is there anything else you want people to know or anywhere else you want people to find you other than the Instagram, which is DOCTOR Jessica.MD?
Yeah, so you can find me at that same handle on Twitter, but I am not as active on there. I'm also active at the same handle on TikTok. But I think we covered everything that we set out to accomplish, and it's been a pleasure being here.
Great. Thank you. I know we'll talk again soon.
Sounds great.
You got it. Okay, so here we are. It is Wednesday. Tomorrow, more interesting guests. I have to run to New York for a couple of days right after that, but I'll be back for the Tuesday show. It is Viva Fry, Brad Palumbo, Brianna Wu. That's a pretty powerful lineup. And then, speaking of powerful lineups, Dr. Ryan Cole and Aaron Siri all in one afternoon. Sonia Aliha, if we pronounce it. Nick Freitas in here. Del Bigtree, Emily Jashinsky, who I'm trying to set up something for her podcast. Salty Cracker. It's I can't see below that because the camera's in front of it.
Dr.
Caleb,
Scott Atlas is coming in on the 7th of May.
Oh, that is such a, that is, I feel kind of the way I felt when I found out that Jay Bhattacharya was being considered for NIH. There are things that relieve me. That's like, and Scott Atlas has recently been on fire on social media, and I just welcome the opportunity to talk to him about what's going on there.
Andrew, I have to show you.
Also,
I have to show you in the audience.
Yeah.
What my ridiculous wife did this week is she got us tickets, and we saw the free speech warrior Afroman in person.
I liked and retweeted all your stuff. I did. I thought that was great. Was he interesting in person?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
he's exactly what he is online. Like he's been the same guy for 30 years. And I only knew maybe 2 or 3 of his songs. And most of the people there only knew 2 or 3 of his songs too. Everybody was there because of his free speech case. He's a free speech warrior for us. And so everyone wanted to go support, get him some money because, I researched his case. He's not going to get any payout for all that trouble they put him through. Like he still had to pay all his lawyers, take 3 years of time out.
Yeah.
So
I had a really interesting reaction to his case. At first I was like, well, I want if these people say things online that hurt somebody, I want them to be taken to task. At first I was very supportive. And then I saw his point of view. I saw what they were going after. And I thought, oh no, I've completely changed my opinion about this case. So yes, it's okay to go after people who are trying to hurt you, but choose your battles wisely, I guess. All right. So thank you all for being here. We'll be back.
Thank you, callers. Sorry we didn't get to everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get to all the callers, but the callers that were with us were excellent. Do you want me to take the calls since they're waiting?
I think the callers can hear us in real time, though.
Do you want me to call back?
I think because we were close to the show, I think I started dropping them. Yeah. So they can call back tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, call back tomorrow, and I will take your calls. But tomorrow, I'm not sure I can tomorrow.
Good
tomorrow,
calls today.
So maybe more like Tuesday next week, because tomorrow is an action-packed show. So
a lot of people have a lot to say about COVID because everybody experienced it. You know what I mean?
Somebody's upset with me for supporting statins. Yeah, well, I am. You got to understand. I am down the middle on most things.
Prolific.
You know what I mean? I'm down the middle. I'm not a statin enthusiast. I don't force patients to take statins. I take a statin. My dad had horrible vascular disease. I don't have, maybe because I've been taking the statin for a long time. But I take a very, 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 very low dose of it. And I'm very aware of the concerns and the science shortcomings. So don't worry. But I do try to find a middle ground always. That's always what I'm looking for. All right. I'll see you tomorrow at 2:00 Pacific. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Kaleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. Emily Barsh is our content producer. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.